Hello everyone, welcome, and today I'm going to be talking about HIV or human immunodeficiency virus. First, let's get started with what is HIV? HIV is also known as human immunodeficiency virus. Just like in its name, it is a virus, more specifically a retrovirus. Now, a retrovirus is a virus that has RNA and through an enzyme called reverse transcriptase can allow the virus to make copies of DNA from RNA in a host cell in order to replicate. What HIV does is it attacks the immune system. Doing this, the immune system begins to fail, which makes a person more vulnerable to other infections and diseases that a healthy immune system would be able to fight off. Now, in the immune system, the HIV doesn't just target any kind of cell in the immune system. It specifically targets CD4 plus cells, such as macrophages and T cells, which have CD4 molecules. Now, CD4 molecules are what help the immune cells to communicate with each other. And if HIV is not treated, it can result into acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, or AIDS, which can actually bring to someone a potential life-threatening risk or potential life-threatening conditions. Now, there are two types of HIV. There is HIV-1, which is the most common HIV and is commonly known worldwide. And there is HIV-2, which is more rare and restricted to Western Africa and Southern Asia. Now, diving on to the history of HIV. Back in the late 1800s, HIV started infecting people through a type of chimpanzee in Central Africa. Now, the virus version of the chimpanzee was called simian immunodeficiency virus, or SIV, and it was believed that the virus was passed to the humans when they hunted that type of chimpanzee for meat, and the virus came into contact with the human blood. Over the years, HIV slowly started to spread across Africa and other parts of the world. And ever since the mid to late 1970s, the virus has been in the United States. But there wasn't much known about the virus and no immediate action was taken until later in 1981 when the first report of AIDS was discovered and tested on a patient, and scientists confirmed that it was caused by a retrovirus. And after years of studies and naming, the retrovirus was named HIV. And ever since then, there continues to be studies and research of HIV. Now, let's dive on to the structure of HIV. Now, there are many other types of parts in HIV, but let's just look at these ones, starting with GP120 and GP41. On the surface of its envelope, HIV has proteins called GP120 and GP41, and their functions are to bind to the CD4 receptor on a CD4 cell, such as a T cell, and penetrate the surface on the T cell to infect it with viral RNA. The lipid membrane, it is to stabilize the glycoprotein, the GP120 and GP41 that are on the surface of the envelope of the virus. Now, the matrix, it forms a coat on the inner surface of the membrane and plays a central role of assembling the new viruses from the surface of an infected CD4 cell. The capsid, it is a protein cone-like coat that surrounds the viral RNA and is responsible for the safe delivery of the viral RNA when it goes inside of a T cell or any kind of CD4 cell to infect it. The integrase, it takes copies of DNA and then inserts that DNA of the virus into the DNA of the CD4 cell. The protease, it is the maturation of the HIV. It is what makes an immature HIV into a mature HIV. The proteins in HIV are built as polyproteins, which are cut up into proper functional pieces by the protease, making the HIV mature. The nucleocapsid, it binds and forms a complex with the viral RNA to protect it. The RNA genome, since HIV is a retrovirus, it has a single strand of RNA, which is its genetic material, as well as it is to convert the RNA into DNA through an enzyme called reverse transcriptase. And speaking of reverse transcriptase, it is an enzyme that is found in retroviruses and allows the virus to convert RNA into DNA when the RNA is inside of a cell. Now, let's look at how HIV enters inside of a CD4 cell. What HIV does is it attaches to a CD4 molecule in a CD4 cell with its GP120 protein. It then again attaches it to a co-receptor, which is what HIV needs to do in order to get inside of the cell. Once it binds to the CD4 molecule and the co-receptor, it gains access and injects its RNA into the cell. Once the RNA is inside of the cell, it uses the reverse transcriptase enzyme to convert the RNA into DNA. Once this is done, the DNA is inserted into the cell's DNA and it stays there waiting for the immune cell to activate. When the immune cell becomes activated due to an infection or a disease, the CD4 cell starts to reproduce and replicate proteins that is needed for the immune response. Doing this, the cell starts to form and unawarely replicate new HIV viruses, which form and burst out of the cell but are immature. So they use and release protease. Once they become mature, they go and infect more CD4 cells. Now, a person has been infected, but what are the stages and symptoms that a person gets when they have HIV in their body? There are 3 stages to HIV. There is acute HIV infection, chronic HIV infection, and AIDS. Stage 1, acute HIV infection. A person that has been infected with HIV, within 2 to 4 weeks, they will start to have flu-like symptoms such as fevers, chills, rashes, night sweat, muscle aches, sore throat, fatigue, and vomiting. However, some people may not have any symptoms during the early stage of HIV. During the first stage of HIV, there is a large amount of the virus in the blood, making a person highly contagious and having a higher risk of infecting someone. Also known as the clinical latticine stage or the chronic HIV stage, in the second stage, the population of HIV increases while the population of CD4 cells decreases. In this stage, the person may not have any symptoms, but if there is no treatment taken, the person can stay in this stage for several years. Now, the third stage, AIDS. At this point, if a person has not been treated, they head into the final stage, which is having AIDS, where the virus has badly damaged and weakened the immune system, and the person has AIDS. Some of the symptoms are weight loss, fevers, night sweat, fatigue, swelling in some parts of the body, diarrhea, soreness, pneumonia, and red spots on or under the skin, inside the mouth, nose, or eyelids. Since the immune system has become badly damaged, it gives diseases and infections the opportunity to enter inside of the body. And if a person is still not treated, they will only have 3 years to survive. Now, what is the transmission, or how does the virus transmit or go from one person to another? Well, HIV can be transmitted in a variety of different ways. However, HIV cannot be transmitted through air, sweat, tears, sharing the same food or drinks, hugging or shaking hands. However, HIV can be transmitted through sharing the same needle or syringe, through blood transfusion, during pregnancy, birth, or breastfeeding. But the most common that HIV has been transmitted from person to person is from erotic activity. Now, diving on to the population of infections that HIV has caused in the world. Ever since the beginning of the outbreak, 64 to 113 million people have been infected with HIV, and 33.6 to 48.6 million people have died of HIV through AIDS. In 2021, the World Health Organization recorded the amount of people that have been infected with HIV. At the end of 2022, approximately 38.4 million people have been living with HIV. 1.5 million people became newly infected with the virus, and 510,000 to 860,000 people have died through HIV through AIDS. Of the 38.4 million people that have been infected with HIV, 36.7 million were from the ages of 15 and older, and 1.7 million people were from the ages of 14 and younger. And from that, 19.7 million women from the ages of 15 and older and 16.9 million men from the ages of 15 and older have been infected by HIV. However, 28.7 million people have been using treatments such as antiretroviral therapy, or ART, to slow down HIV. And speaking of treatments and slowing down HIV, what are the treatments or cures of HIV? Well, unfortunately, there is no cure for HIV. However, there are treatments to control and slow down HIV from getting to the third stage, as well as reproducing quickly. The primary treatment that is used is called antiretroviral therapy, or ART, which involves a combination of HIV medicines that help to reduce the reproduction and replication of HIV. By having less HIV in the body, it gives the immune system of someone a chance to recover and produce more CD4 cells. Now, despite that there is still HIV in the body, by slowing it down and reducing it from multiplying quickly, it allows the immune system to become strong enough to fight other infections effectively. By using these treatments, it helps someone that has HIV or already has AIDS to live a longer and healthier life, as well as reduce the risk of transmitting HIV and the virus to someone else. And with that, this concludes my presentation of human immunodeficiency virus, or more commonly known as HIV. Thank you so much for listening to my presentation.